All right, like I promised earlier, we're of course getting into the conversation on renewable energy, and we're talking about Enel Green Power. They do develop and manage activities for the generation of energy that is from renewable sources worldwide. And the company is present in over 25 countries spanning 5 continents. Joining me to talk about renewable energy solutions is Andrea Gazzini, Enel Green Power's Head of Business Development for Africa and the Middle East. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody.
All right, so even as we get into this conversation on renewable energy and renewable energy solutions, we've had a lot of experts, say that investment and public-private collaboration is needed to accelerate the transition to a more sustainable energy system. So, what are your thoughts on the private sector's approach to actually using this energy, or perhaps even shifting, from the traditional sources that they have been relying on, in line with economic implications?
Yes, so for sure, renewable has been widely recognized to be an enabler for the development of the economies, mainly in emerging countries. So renewable are very cost competitive. So if the statistics reports that today a renewable plant is the energy produced by a renewable plant is cheaper than any energy produced by new fuel-driven power plant. And by 2030, even renewable will be cheaper than existing coal power plants, for instance, that benefit of the amortization process. Renewable are scalable and are very quick to be implemented. So we recognize as an investor and operator in the market that even medium-large enterprises in more developing countries of Africa, for instance, South Africa, Kenya can be the case, are identifying renewable as a reliable alternative for the energy needs, for a matter of cost, for a matter of efficiency, and also for a matter of reliability. In addition to that, there are other drivers that drive a renewable, mainly for the large corporations that are still investing in the African countries. So substantially, as you know, the sustainability becomes a driver for large and medium enterprises, even for their development activities. So renewable can contribute to the social economic development objectives that drives also the economy itself.
Okay, and when we're talking about, like you said, Africa and talking about the continent, green energy supply in Africa did also get a boost recently. When we look at the UK-Africa summit, we saw that the UK government did announce winners of about £50 million of investment package for the continent's clean energy infrastructure. So even as we look at that, we see that this can lead to investment in solar farms in Kenya, geothermal power stations in Ethiopia, and so much more. So what is your take on how renewable technology could contribute to the development of the economies within Africa? Well,
our direct experience in Africa is either in Morocco and in South Africa, for instance, in which our company is operating in South Africa 1.2 gigawatts of power plants, so 700 in operation, 500 700 in construction, 500 in operation. And we have a headquarters in Johannesburg with more than 150 employees. Of course, renewable implies that the local industry has to contribute with jobs and skills. So renewables are an enabler for the local economy because they create new professionals, new skills, and also opportunities either during the development phase, construction, and operation. It's also true that many European countries are investing and creating funds to deploy renewable in the sub-Saharan Africa mainly, but in the African sector, in the African market. But it's also true that although there is a willingness to push for renewable even at the government levels, in the reality, if you look at the results, the effectiveness of those instruments is very limited. And the main barrier that we have detected is, as an investor, is because sometimes the regulatory framework is not crystal clear or properly developed, and substantially the system creates some holes that implies big delays in the project implementation. And this, of course, has a negative impact on the economy.
Okay, that's very interesting. But even as we, take a look at the world in general, we've seen in Davos, Switzerland right now with the World Economic Forum going on, leaders from all over the world are talking about the economic implications in terms of, the climate change and things that we're seeing, the correlation. They're trying to look at policies and a lot of framework that can help to make their practices more sustainable. So they're not hurting the climate as much as they want to, of course, have that economic benefit. What do you think is the biggest takeaway, the biggest factor that they need to consider right now?
The business factor is that if from one side Africa is a continent that requires to grow, and electricity is a big enabler for creating the GDP. So there are statistics that demonstrate that GDP is of a country is proportionate to the access to electricity. On the other way around, it's also true that Africa has different fossil fuels resources. But we cannot forget what had happened in Australia, for instance. Climate change is a fact.
Yes.
So nobody will be. We are living all together in the world. Nobody will be exempted from the climate change. So actions is required, and renewables is a quick and reliable response to the action required for inverting the climate change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And when we look at Enel Green Power contributing to the development of renewable technology in African countries, what more can you tell us?
Well, Enel Green Power is one of the bigger operators in the renewable technology in Africa. We have, as I said before, established big investments in South Africa. So we have a big headquarter in Johannesburg. We have invested almost 2 billion euro in the country. We have currently 533 megawatt in operation, either solar and wind. Other 733 megawatt under construction with 5 wind projects. The company, although the big delays that the process of renewable implementation suffered in the last 4 years, is currently having granting, let's say, 150 employees of direct employment. But also those projects are creating a lot of indirect employment through their contractor and contractor. Similarly, we are now starting our activity in Morocco. In Morocco, the company, with the local partner, we have a joint venture and we are building our first plant that is 180 megawatt and almost, we are talking about other 220 million euro investment. And the overall investment in Morocco is expected to be another billion euros. So okay. those money and those investments are for the local market.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and, of course, for delving deeper into renewable energy and what more we can do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your time.
All right, we'll move on to this story now. President Uhuru Kenyatta on Tuesday held talks with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, focused on scaling up the ties between Kenya and the UK. At the meeting held at the PM's office on number 10 Downing Street in London, President Kenyatta and the Prime Minister did discuss a wide range of areas of mutual interest between the two countries. Now, the President was accompanied to the meeting by Cabinet Secretaries Ukur Yatani, Monica Juma and Adan Mohammed, as well as Kenya's High Commissioner to the UK, Ambassador Manoa Epipisu.
You're welcome, President. This kind of exchange is not a thing. It's about time. We're going to do it very good. Anyway, everybody, you got.
Now, still on talk of the